Mobile Passport versus Global Entry, they can both get you through U.S. Customs faster, but what's the difference and which one should you choose? If you're confused about which one is faster, easier, and right for you and your trip, you're in the right place. Let's break it down.
Hey, I'm Kimberly, and this is KRod Collective, where I teach you how to travel solo, travel smart, and help you fall in love with Spain.
Let's start with what each of them are. The Mobile Passport Control app is an app from the U.S. Customs and Border Protection that allows you to speed through U.S. Customs or pre-clearance coming back into the United States from traveling abroad. Global Entry, on the other hand, is a trusted travel program. Now, these are programs run by U.S. Customs and Border Protection, and it gives you expedited clearance through U.S. Customs. Now, you may hear this and think, okay, they're the same thing, but they're not. Although they can both get you through U.S. Customs faster, there are some key differences between these two. So let's talk about how each one of them works, and I think through this, you'll be able to see the differences. As I mentioned earlier, Mobile Passport Control is an app. It's totally free to use. All you need to do to use it is download the app, create a profile, fill out the requested information, go through the dedicated NPC line at Customs, then you talk to the officer, and that's it. The app is available for U.S. citizens, U.S. residents, and Canadian citizens with a B1 or B2 visa. And having a criminal record does not automatically disqualify you from using the app because it doesn't require any sort of pre-approval. Mobile Passport Control is currently available at 35 U.S. international airports, 14 pre-clearance locations, and 4 seaports. Because Global Entry is a program, it requires a lot more. So it is a 5-year program and you do have to apply to get in. At the time of filming this video, the current application fee is $120. The program does involve a federal background check and a short in-person interview. At this interview, you'll get your fingerprint taken, your photo taken, and your ID will be checked. And then once you finish the interview, you'll get something called a known traveler number. So this number you include into your flight booking. So when you're booking your flight, you'll put it in there, and then that is going to give you TSA PreCheck. Global Entry is available for U.S. citizens, U.S. residents, and any citizen of a country that has an agreement with the U.S., including the UK, Argentina, Germany, and more. I'm going to leave a full list of those countries down in the description box below. If you have a criminal conviction, a customs violation, or any sort of investigation, this might disqualify you from being eligible for the program. Global Entry is currently available in 77 airports worldwide, including 62 U.S. airports. So, as you can see, they are very different. Mobile Passport is free, whereas Global Entry does cost $120 for 5 years. Mobile Passport does not require an interview or an application fee, and you don't need to share personal data other than your passport information, whereas Global Entry does require a vetting process. So now let's talk about the pros and cons of each so that you can decide which one is best for you. Okay, so here are some pros of using the Mobile Passport Control app. So firstly, I think it's much easier to just jump right in and start using the service because it really only requires that you download the app. So it's really great for last-minute travel, and honestly, it's something that you could decide to use in the middle of your trip or right before coming back. Secondly, it's free. It's free 99, you don't have to pay a thing, and we love that. Thirdly, Mobile Passport is really great if you're traveling in a group or with one other person because you can add up to 12 people under one submission. So I recently took an international trip with my mother. I have Global Entry, she does not, and we decided to use the app, and it was really great because we could stay together. We talked to the customs officer together, and we were able to stay together throughout the entire customs process. And then lastly, some people may or may not see this as a pro, but it is privacy. So if you're someone that is weary about sharing your personal information or personal data, you don't really have to do that with MPC, and you can still take advantage of going through the custom line much faster than you would if you were just going through the regular line. If you're loving this video so far and you're finding it helpful, definitely make sure you like this video and subscribe to this channel for more travel tips. Now, here are some pros of Global Entry. So the first pro is that it automatically comes with TSA PreCheck. There are times where the TSA PreCheck line does get backed up. Yes, this is true. However, I feel like 8 times out of 10, the TSA PreCheck line is usually faster. Also, it's really great if you don't like taking off your shoes, taking out your electronics, because you don't have to do all of that when you're going through the TSA PreCheck line. The second pro for Global Entry is that it lasts for 5 years. So yes, you have to dig up some information about yourself, like all of the addresses that you've lived at. And of course, going through an interview can kind of be a little bit of a pain, but it does last for 5 years. And the renewal process is pretty easy. So you could essentially have the benefits of global entry for as long as you want, unless you get kicked out of the program or decide that you don't want to renew. The third pro is that you don't always have to talk to an officer. There have been so many times where I have come home from an international trip and I go straight up to the kiosk. The officer waves me through and says, "Hi, Ms. Rodriguez, welcome home," and just lets me go straight through. And I love this because it's so easy and it takes no time at all, and I don't even have to pull out my passport. The fourth benefit of having global entry is that it's available at a lot of airports, more airports than NPC, so this gives you more chances of speeding through customs. Another pro is that you don't have to be a US citizen to use global entry. So if you are a citizen of any of the eligible countries, which again I've linked down below, and you travel to the US often, you can still take advantage of global entry. And lastly, if you do have global entry, then both options, both mobile passport and global entry, are available for you to use. So for example, let's say that you land back in the US and you get to customs, and for whatever reason you see that the global entry line is really backed up, but the NPC line is not, then you can hop right into the NPC app, fill out that information really quickly, and go through the NPC line instead. However, I do need to note that you cannot use both of them at the same time. You can only use one or the other. So what you can't do is go ahead and send your info through NPC, and then when you get to customs, decide to go through global entry instead. You cannot do this. So either pick one and commit to it, or wait until you get to customs to see what the lines look like to decide which one you're going to use. Now let's talk about some cons of each of these options. The first downside to using the mobile passport control app is that it's not available at every airport, and there are less airports that use it in comparison to global entry. The next con is that it's not available to all nationalities. So citizens of other countries other than Canada cannot use the app. Thirdly, NPC doesn't come with any sort of expedited security clearance like TSA PreCheck or something like Clear. So if you want this is something that you would have to get on your own. Next, you always have to speak to an officer when you use a mobile passport control app, so there's no chance of bypassing this. Another con is that whenever you do use the app, you do have to re-enter your information, whereas with global entry, because you have already been vetted and it uses your biometric data, you don't have to fill out any sort of application or put in any information. All you do is walk up to the kiosk to get the process started. All right. Now, some cons of using global entry. So firstly, it costs money, $120, and it's non-refundable. So let's say, for example, you apply to the program and you don't get in for whatever reason. You don't get that money back. The upside to this, though, is that there are a few travel credit cards that do reimburse you for that application fee. I will link them down in the description box below. So if you were to use one of those, essentially, it would kind of be like getting it for free. Secondly, there is a larger barrier of entry for using global entry because of all the information that it requires. Also, if you are weary about privacy and having your personal information and data out there, I mean, it does use biometric data. This is something that you might want to consider. A big con with global entry right now is that a lot of enrollment centers are backed up. So even though you've applied, maybe you've been conditionally approved, you might be waiting up to even a year before you even have an interview. Now, this all depends on the enrollment center itself, and some enrollment centers are more backed up than others. Now, there are a few workarounds around this, and you can find that information in this video right here, and I'll leave a little bit of information on that down in the description box. The next con is that if you are traveling with children and they don't have global entry, they cannot go through the global entry line with you. You need to enroll your child separately for global entry if they are 18 years or younger, and they would need to go through the same process that you did, have a global entry interview, apply online. The good news is that the application is free for kids whose parents are already a Trusted Traveler member. So all you need to do is put in the parent or guardian's Trusted Traveler number and information, and then the application will be free. And lastly, not all travelers will qualify. Some criminal records can disqualify you from the program. However, you do have the option to appeal if you see fit. And also, I have heard of many people getting into the program even though they have a criminal background. And listen, everybody has a past, and this is also something that they take into consideration. Deciding which one to go with is all gonna depend on how often you travel internationally and how important some of these aspects are to you. If you want a deeper dive into each one of these programs, I have individual videos for each of them, breaking them down step by step. You can find those videos right here, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.